Hey, welcome back from our nice little ad break. What's up? We're joined with our three guests, our three lovely
hmm
guests today, and they're gonna go introduce themselves. So I won't. I hate when like you introduce somebody and then they have to like introduce themselves again. Like in class, like they'd be like, "Oh, Daniel, go ahead," and then you're like, "Oh, hi, I'm Daniel." You
Oh,
know what I mean? Okay, so go ahead.
sure.
You know who's first.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like doing that either. But yeah, hi everyone. My name is Alina. I am a co-host on Colonize This and also Dear Asian Girl. I am a Pakistani American, so I am South Asian. I don't know. Okay, so area of interest in the entertainment industry. I'm really passionate about directing and also production in general. So yeah, I think that's what I'm interested in. I don't know.
No, yeah, and you're starting or you're making a documentary or something?
Yeah, I'm making trying. We'll put it that way.
No, yeah.
I'm trying to make a short film and a documentary, but
Mhm.
it's who knew making films is hard, right? So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. But yeah.
Fun. That's so exciting. Serena. Oh, sorry. Me literally doing what you just said you don't like.
Let's just
Anyway.
pause for a second. Reel it in. Hi. Hi, my name is Serena. I am currently working in social media advertising as an editor. But as for future long-term goals, I'd love to have a job that kind of just is about like the ideation process of just, I don't know, like I just think I like a lot of things in
Mhm.
summation, but right now social media is my groove. I love
Mhm.
it, love everything about it. It could change in like 5 years, who knows? But I am Filipino American, and I forgot what the other question was, but I am
No,
here
I
and
think
I'm ready
yeah.
to talk about it.
Period. I was literally about to say something I completely. Oh, I was gonna say I too would like a job. That's my contribution to
Oh,
that.
I would love a job. I've been unemployed for like a year, so
It's so exciting.
it's okay.
And then
I
our
hope
last guest.
you
Oh,
both
hi.
get. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I hope you both get jobs.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Thank you.
much.
I need that.
Welcome
No
to our
problem.
Hollywood.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm Zoe. Um, my interest is in visual arts, I guess. I like painting, like watercolor and oil. Those are like my two favorite mediums. And I do a little bit of like cinematography work, but mostly like screenplays, I guess. Like I help my friends write for their projects. Not really that big into producing, but I think it like definitely is really cool. And I am Taiwanese, but I was raised in Bulgaria, so I guess I'm Taiwanese American now because I live in America now. So that's where I'm at. But
Okay,
I'm excited to be here
fun.
today.
Yeah,
So fun.
welcome to our Hollywood. Because Serena and Alina have been here before.
Mm-hmm.
This is Zoe's first
Interaction with
rodeo.
us.
Like
Sure,
my
rodeo.
my word was a little more
Rodeo.
fun.
Yeah, I don't
Thank
know.
you. Yes,
I think
I'm
very
very
critically.
excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm also
um,
Filipino American,
oh
so
my
so
God,
you guys. Well, I'm half Filipino, half white.
Mm,
Yeah,
not the embarrassment.
it is
Oh
very
my God,
funny,
no, I'm
but
also half white. Sorry. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I
no, it's
am.
It's
okay.
okay.
You can claim it or not. It's up to you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, my mom did like an ancestry thing, and we found out that her great grandpa was like white, and he like did some really sketchy things. I
Oh.
won't go into it. Anyway, yeah. No, not like that. I just mean like he like came to America and then like moved to South America and changed his name to Carlos. So he was like pretending to
Uh,
not be white.
Whoa, he totally rejected being white.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, he
Anyway.
started cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My great 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 grandpa.
Single-handedly.
He
So
invented
scary.
it.
Yeah. Anyway, so Kim already kind of introduced our topic a little bit today. Um,
Yeah, I don't think I told you guys why. I mean, I think it's kind of obvious why I wanted to do
mhm,
this. But definitely this was kind of like a idea from the events that happened in Atlanta So I think that's why it was kind of on my mind a lot. And I feel like I've just been like super emotional about it. Like I'm literally getting emotional about it right now. And it's just crazy to me how like strong, not to be girl bossy, but strong Asian women are, because I feel like, especially with like the stereotypes we're going to get into, I feel like the renowned thing that I've gotten from it is that they're being silenced in a way. And I feel like that also kind of goes into how we are in society. I feel like a lot of Asian women that I know, especially ones that immigrated directly from Asia, like they take a lot of shit, to be honest, and they are literally fighting for their lives and fighting for their children to like have it better. So I think that's why it like resonated with me that all these women that passed away like had to go through that. It makes me so sad. So I think like it's important to have conversations about this, because I feel like especially Asian women are like very much not taken seriously. So I hope like having conversations like this will like help. Me crying.
No, it's okay.
But it's sad.
Yeah, this is gonna get emotional at some point, because like it's like what happened is literally so just like terrifying and like infuriating, and every possible emotion that you can have came through when that happened. And I don't know, it's a lot. It's a lot. So that reaction was very valid.
I feel like I haven't like talked about it with people yet. So it's like,
oh my God, me neither.
You know?
I mean, I
like,
talked a little bit with Alina about it because she's also Asian, but I'm not about to discuss this with white people. Absolutely not. Because the reactions I get are so unacceptable. Even people that are like my friends, like they don't know how to handle it. You know what I mean? Because they aren't Asian. And I guess I'm not going to say that's understandable, because it's not. Like white people get better at that. But it's just like, I don't want to put myself in that position to get hurt, even though it's not something I can put myself in, you know, like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like when people are like, oh, why would you put yourself in that position? Like, what were you wearing? Da 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 da. It's like, what were you talking about with your white friends? Like that shouldn't be the same thing. I don't know. Sorry, I know this isn't supposed to be about that, but I just mean like,
no, it's okay.
I'm very proud of you for sharing your thoughts. And I think it's very important that we have these conversations. So
yeah. And I feel like a lot of it, like, especially how other people that aren't Asian handle it. And I think it does tie into like what we see in the media about Asians and Asian Americans. And I think that's a good place to start. I think I'm going to start with the model minority trope, because I think that's a really big reason why people are so, I don't know if like confused is the right word, but people are like kind of confused as to why all of a sudden Asians are having a problem, I guess. Okay. You know what I mean? Because I feel like this is kind of the first time, at least in my lifetime, that this has been like a big talked about issue. I don't know. So the model minority trope is just kind of this like trope that Asians are like the most accepted like POCs. You know, they're most assimilated into our society, but that is because they are being kind of subservient to white people and just accommodating to that. And it's not even like, I feel like it, you know how like it comes as small as Asians get good grades. You know what I mean? And I think that's like the biggest thing that I saw growing up was like, oh, like Asians are so smart, like you're good at math, like blah, blah, blah. It's just like little things that fit into this trope that you don't realize like make Asian people feel like they're not fitting into their own race. If it doesn't make any sense.
No, yeah, it does.
You know, because I was not smart. I was not smart like that. And I feel like all of us, especially when it comes to women that want to be in the creative arts, you know what I mean, in any regards, it's kind of like, oh, why would you want to do that? Why don't you study chemistry? Like, what's going on? Like, did something not click for you? Like, are you even really Asian? Like, it's just super weird. I don't know if like anybody has like had experiences like that when they were in like school.
Absolutely. Sorry to jump in. I agree. I think the model minority myth is a very big example of just, and you see it reflected right now with how people are responding to the anti-Asian hate sentiment. But with the model minority myth, what's interesting is that we're like a minority that's like equated to whiteness almost because of us being seen as smart, successful, because we're Asian. And so that sort of stereotype is one portrayed in media, which I'm sure we'll get into more. But my experiences, and I'll tell y'all right now, I got my SAT score back today. I am not smart, so don't give me that stereotype. Do not give me that stereotype. So I've had experiences like that. Like I failed algebra and people are like, "Oh, why are you not in like calc? You're Asian, whatever." And I think the reason why these sort of like, I'm not even gonna call microaggressions, but like because it's straight up racism.
Mhm.
These sort of actions add to how issues about anti-Asian sentiment, hate sentiment, are not being taken seriously, because when we're equated to whiteness, we are not taken seriously as a minority. Our issues are not taken seriously in regards to hate crimes and just in general, like internalized racism. And so we see that with like the women who passed away with these hate crimes. People are not taking this seriously because they're like, oh, well, they're Asian, you know, like since we're equated to white, it's just a whole mess. So I thought I'd add that in there. So hopefully my point made sense, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I feel you. I literally got admitted to college on academic probation. That's how bad my SAT scores were. But hey, I made it. You know,
Good.
you can do it. I graduated in 4 years with 2 degrees. Period.
Ooh,
Girl boss.
Oh my god. Yeah, let's not ever do
This
that
is
again.
so weird because we haven't seen each other in like 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
And we showed up also wearing brown
The
together.
color scheme. Kind of scary.
Anyways.
What I was just gonna say is I feel like at the root of everything, of course, like in American culture, is just the fact that white supremacy is something that upholds and it's something that resonates and it's something that makes Asians, I mean, like internalized, like hate. I'm sorry, this is just a hard topic, but I mean, I'm someone that I grew up in predominantly white towns. I went to school, I actually transferred from an area that was full of minorities into one that was predominantly white when I was in 3rd grade. And I remember it was the biggest culture shock on earth, in a sense that people just have a hard time understanding Asians in general. But I think especially being young and growing up when you're impressionable and just being constantly surrounded by people that don't look like you and don't necessarily understand you, it just sets you kind of up for failure in a way, because for the longest time I had such a big sense of fear of failure, and that's something that I deal with to this day. It's because I feel like there were so many expectations that people had of me that I just couldn't meet, whether it be in school or just job-wise. And I think that especially during the college application process, that was something I took out on myself a lot. And it was hard when you'd hear so many smart people like got into such great schools, but then there would be people that say, of course they got in, they're Asian. Or if you didn't get into a good school, they'd say, but you're Asian. And it's just kind of one of those things where your successes are kind of reduced to the fact that you are a minority, and people are just like, it's just hard. It's really hard, and I wish it wasn't, but I'm glad we're having these conversations. But I think it is important to note that white supremacy is something that, of course, is the root of the model minority trope. And it's kind of the fact that, like, I mean, minorities are kind of set up against each other to compete. And I think that is another topic in itself, is the racial divide in between, or intra-minority racism as a whole, just because of white supremacy and pitting us against each other. Sorry, that wasn't eloquent. I was really flustered.
No, that was very eloquent.
It really was. No, and I think, not to intrude, but like how you were saying, like it feels like, well, okay, me bringing it back to TikTok. I saw a TikTok that was like, and I had never thought of it this way, because it just, white supremacy is everywhere, whether you notice it or not.
Who?
And like, white supremacy.
Oh, I thought you said like a name. I was like, who are you talking about?
No, white supremacy.
Kim
And
said
so, yeah.
That's how it should be.
Yeah. But it was like, because you know how now we have terms like white passing and that kind of thing, and they were like, the reason we have these things is because white supremacy wants to expand the I guess, what's the word? Expand the term. I'm not putting this in a very smart way at all, but like they want to expand what is considered white so that they can keep the oh my god, me completely
I get what
forgetting.
you're saying though.
Does that make sense? Okay,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
TikTok said it way better than I did, and I'll post it on the Instagram, but it was basically like the reason that there's things like white passing is like, oh, but you're not a minority, and like trying to take that away from some people is like is to expand what is considered white to uphold white supremacy. There you go. That sounded a lot smarter. Me literally writing my essays.
Trying to get my word count
Yeah.
out. I do think it's interesting, like what you like, how microaggressions and on just racism that is passed as microaggression, and like this, how you're saying like, oh, if you didn't get into good school, then like how like you're Asian. I think it's like, me forgetting my point of thought because I was like, I was trying to get what you were saying so hard, but I forgot what I was gonna go on about.
There's like lack of air in here.
Yeah, I don't think I'm breathing. No, genuinely, because I think it's like, I do think this topic is really hard because like I didn't grow up with a lot of Asian people in my life because I grew up in Virginia at first, and then when I was like 9, I moved to California, and because I don't look necessarily blatantly Filipino, you know, like I get told that I look very racially ambiguous, I guess, but I'm definitely not white passing. I don't really know, but a lot of people that aren't Filipino can't tell that I'm Filipino. I just get like, I get Hispanic or Native American, whatever, but it's really weird because I never felt like I had a place, I guess, because you know how like a lot of times you kind of just group yourselves with people that look like you.
Yeah.
So especially when you're young and nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. So I think it really hurt like my identity, and that's kind of why I rejected like accepting my Asianness, I guess. And it makes me sad because I feel like I'm catching up on learning about my culture. And I think that sucks. I think especially because I'm a first generation American on my mom's side. So I feel like because my mom came here when she was like 20 years old or something, or 19, they obviously, when you come here, you want to assimilate into American culture because that's why you're coming to America, you know what I mean? So I think it just kind of gets lost in like teaching the culture that you have because you were trying to kind of get away from it and accept this American ideology, you know?
Yeah.
So it's hard, and especially Filipino culture, because it's been damn colonized to fucking extinction. It's so hard to understand like what is going on with my culture, and it sucks because what I do know about it, it's so beautiful. So it's like, it sucks. fuck colonizers. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry so much. I literally haven't talked to people in like 2 weeks, guys. Like,
maybe it's like a mix of it. It's just the first time these emotions are coming out in words.
Yeah,
because they were just like all
it's all in your head, and I think it's hard to like express it again because of all these stereotypes that are put upon us. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so did you want to talk about it before we go too far off of the model minority?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that like I also didn't grow up in a lot of predominantly Asian spaces. I was raised in Eastern Europe, which is pretty racially homogenous. And then I moved to America, which is also very white. So I like always felt like I had to fit into, like Sierra said, like a box or kind of this idea or perception that other people had of me. And like up to like 9th grade, I was the Asian kid that would like do the fake accent and like make cat jokes. Like it was terrible because like I hated myself literally. And I'm gonna cry too. Oh my god. Like
It's okay. I think this is like a safe space to cry.
Everyone cries on Zoom.
We all cry on Zoom.
Yeah.
But like, I wanted to be white so bad. Woo! Sorry. And I like did the same thing where I wasn't able to learn about who I really was because I so badly wanted to have friends. And like the people that wanted to be friends with me were people that wanted me to be the Asian friend, or like people that wanted me to just like act white. So I wasn't able to like be what I really was, if that makes sense. And even like now, like white people are threatened by me because I've finally found myself, and I feel like I'm finally getting closer to like learning about who I really am and like being able to express my culture. And like so many white people will literally just not hang out with me because they're threatened by that. And I think that's like white supremacy and white fragility being blatantly like expressed through those people. And even though they like don't say things that are racist, like that is literally racist to be like, oh, this makes me uncomfortable and I'm not going to be friends with you because of your race. And they do it to like black kids too, and to like everybody, and it's terrible. Like that's why so many of my like my other people of color friends like have such a toxic experience with like going to public school because of like shit like that, you know, where like you are under this insane amount of pressure all the time to fit into like whatever is the norm. So I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to like go off the rail, but yeah, thanks.
I think it's crazy too because I like a lot of people feel like they need to like assimilate into like white culture, but the weird thing is about white culture is that they're taking everything from other cultures.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like it's so weird that happens. You're literally whitewashing other people's culture and then using it as a weapon at the culture you stole it from.
It's so
like that.
What is the thought process there?
Make it make sense. And I think this, I want white people to listen to this so bad. And I think a lot of times white people get super defensive when we're saying white people, but it's like, listen to what what you've done for the past thousands of years. Like you have purposefully minimized cultures and colonized cultures and taken things, and we're just kind of showing you the mirror. Like how is that being rude that we're just trying to express like how you're making us feel? And literally, the fact that you're just trying to villainize us for expressing our anger is just crazy.
It's really frustrating, I think.
Go ahead, Zoe.
Sorry,
Thank you. I did raise my hand because I, like, you were saying something, so I didn't want to interrupt. But I was going to say, like, that's so true. And I think it's so normalized with even the smallest thing can set us off. I mean, me personally, because I know, like, this is like, obviously I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone, and I hate how I have to preface that, like, everybody should just know that, like, we have individual thoughts, you know, but every white person I've ever met, even my closest friends, even my dad, has like at least once made me feel unsafe because of my race. And that's like, you know, that needs to not happen. I don't know if like that's just me because of like where I've lived or the people I've chosen to be around, but like that really is very terrible that you always have to like pre-assess to make sure that you can like say something or do something, you know, or else you'll get, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I explained that correctly, but
no, it makes perfect sense. It feels like you have to, like you're walking on eggshells around white people, because
especially when it's your family members, because I've definitely had to do that because I grew up around my white family. Me and my mom were the only brown people around, and like it sucked, especially when it's from your family. I've had family members call me Chinese and make Chinese jokes at me, and I'm like, what is going on? I'm literally not Chinese. And like they would make eating dog jokes to me, and I'm just like, what is going on? And I think that also made me want to push away my Asian identity. And it sucks, especially when it's your own family members doing that, because then you think somehow it's okay because that's your family and you're supposed to love them unconditionally. Go ahead, Serena.
Sorry, I had to unraise my hand for a second. But I mean, going back to like what you were saying, like I feel, sorry, I lost my train of thought trying to figure out how to unraise my hand. I think it really just like comes down to the fact that like we, like especially growing up in predominantly like white cities, as I mentioned, like people get really comfortable being racist around you and being racist to you just because it's like, it's almost like they associate you with white people. So they're just like, oh, you're one of us. You're not like them. Like we're talking about those Asians, or we're talking about those people, not you in particular. But it's like they have no idea that their jokes and like their gestures directly affect and like are directly things that people in your life and people that you love that are Asian can relate to. Like there's so many times like microaggressions such as like I remember even in college in a time that of course you'd think, oh yeah, like the late 2010s and like 2020, like people would know better, but they genuinely don't. Like there's so many times that like people will be like, okay, like let's take a funny photo. And then they instantly go with their hands to the eyes and they make their Asian eyes. And then, but they just never think. They never think, oh, that's offensive. Oh, we're making fun of Asians. They think, oh, we're just making a silly face. But I'm like, how are my eyes considered silly? How are people I know and love's eyes silly to you? Alina, take it away, girl. Take it
away. No, I was just going to say, because I mean, my hand flew in my mouth when you said people are like using that as like a silly pose. That's so fucked up. I don't know if I can swear on the podcast, but okay, because I swear so much. I literally cannot.
We're like, crying and swearing really on bad. Our Hollywood.
Perfect. Always. I love it. Great environment for me. Yeah, like for me, I grew up in Idaho all my life for 16 out of my 17 years of life. So it's been normalized to me to be in a racially homogenous area for all my life. And one thing that I've noticed, and I've experienced, this is a microaggression, but it's literally just racist. One thing that I've noticed that's become so normalized to me is when, and this is for all people of color, I think, but when you're interested in someone, you're like, you always have to question, well, do they like Asian girls? Do they like brown girls? Like, do they like women of color?
Or do they like Asian girls a little too much?
Yeah, exactly. That's happened before, but we don't need to, anyways. Yeah. Zoe and I shared experience. Anyway, so
I feel
it's bad. It's always the white boy who's obsessed with World War II. Also, I have to mention that it literally always is. I don't know. Anyways, sorry, I'm like going on to another rant. But like for me, like I was into this one guy, and he was actually Iranian, so he was also brown. So I was like, we were like hitting it off, whatever. And then he talks to my cousin, and he's like, "Your cousin's cool, but I'm not into brown girls." And I was like, okay, pause for a second. And so for me, like I share some experiences with y'all in a sense where it's like it just becomes so normalized in our culture that even we are now normalizing it ourselves because it's just we become like used to it. And I think going back to the whole media thing, because I'm obsessed with connecting shit back to media, but it starts with like Asian women's portrayal in media. And I know you all have like a lot of topics on this, but one being that we're never seen as like the beauty standard, or if we are, it's a form of like fetishization. So for me, growing up, I've never seen like someone who looks like me on screen that is like the love interest or the cute girl or the cool girl, whatever. And so we're all consuming the same media that these white boys are, right? So it's like they're getting this shared perspective that, oh, only white girls are attractive or only whatever, right? And that women of color aren't attractive. They're like portrayed as the nerd, like Asian girls are the nerd, whatever, all these stereotypes.
Or like a collectible item, you know? I feel like that's almost worse because it's like, I'd rather you just leave me alone than try to colonize me, you know? I don't know.
Yeah. So anyways, sorry. Go ahead. No, I'm done. I can rant forever. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You're good. To your point, I was going to say there was a tweet that I once saw that was like, what it was something along the lines of like, did you always think that you were ugly, or did you just grow up going to a school around white people? And I think that's such a crazy point. What you were saying about is like when you do when you do have a crush on like a white guy, and then you ask yourself like, will he even think I'm cute? Like, will he even like be interested in me? And I think like especially because like I went to school surrounded by like a bunch of white people, a thing that would always happen to me is like I always felt like the person I wanted ended up with the white girl. And so like in many ways I felt like I shrunk myself down to kind of just be a more white version of myself. And like it's so difficult as an Asian American to to truly belong, because you're too white for your Asian peers, but you're also too Asian for your white ones. So you just are kind of at this like nexus of identity that just like you don't really have a place to belong because you don't even truly accept yourself. And like I think it's just like, oh man, it feels so good just hearing other people talk about this stuff, because like I mean, I'm really fortunate that like I do have like friends that like I'll try to explain this stuff to, and they're very receptive of it, but at the same time it's like hearing it and like understanding it at an arm's distance is just very different from actually experiencing it. And like I'm just happy to be here.
No, literally, when you said that, I literally like put my hands in my mouth and I was like, I'm realizing things. I'm realizing things. Things are literally connecting. What the hell? It is crazy, like that we feel like we have to minimize ourselves to fit into these stereotypes, because that's the only way white people or any people are seeing Asian women. That is absolutely bonkers, love. I hate that. What the hell? Anyways, I think going into the next stereotypes, because I think we kind of touched on it. I think Alina kind of touched on it, that like you only kind of fit into two bubbles, in that in academia has been put as the dragon lady and the lotus blossom / China doll stereotype. That second one has a lot of different names, but the dragon lady being like the seductive temptress, seen as a threat to like white protagonists, and that in these films and TV shows that the white protagonist has to kind of colonize this seductress into like making her do what he wants and to get what he wants, which is crazy. And poor Miss Anime Wong, girl, we love you. I'm so sorry that you had to portray this dragon lady and this lotus blossom stereotype perpetually. It makes me so sad.
Yeah.
And she deserves so much better.
Literally.
And the lotus blossom China doll one is kind of like the delicate, seen as helpless. If you know Miss Saigon, it's kind of like this helpless woman, Asian woman, and the white man comes to save her and liberate her through his whiteness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A big culprit of like these stereotypes is like action and adventure movies marketed towards men. For example, Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just
Scott Pilgrim versus the World. That movie sucked so bad.
It makes me so sad. I didn't realize
Literally.
it because I rejected my Asianness so hard. I didn't even realize like Knife Chow was a victim. I didn't realize that until
She was
recently.
17.
Yes.
There was nobody had any problem with that.
Yeah,
And,
I didn't have a problem with that. That was my favorite movie for such a long time. Like I openly was like, yeah, this is my favorite fucking movie. No, Justice for Knives. She really didn't need that.
Really?
I think in the comics they ended up together too. Anyways, I was a stan, and I feel very regretful about that phase of my life because it was hard. It was very hard. But it's super weird because those are kind of like the only two types of Asian women that we see. And it also leads into just like them being seen as sex objects, which is, and I think the thing that I read, it was like a UCLA article. It was saying this is really harmful because it's very two opposite sides of the spectrum, and there leaves literally no middle ground. So it's like you have these two things to identify with, and they both are shitty and very polarizing. And if you don't fit in between that, well, here's some psychological turmoil, I guess.
Definitely. And I see that a lot. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Alina, but I see that a lot within the Asian community as well. Like, I've heard other women like say to me, "Oh my God, Zoe, why are you so loud? Like, you know, guys don't like that, right?" And I'm like, first of all, I don't give a fuck. Also, you know that there are like individuals, right? Like, I don't have to be loud or quiet. I can just be a person. I don't know. So it's kind of like we're like putting those stereotypes onto ourselves because that's what we're expected to be. And even other Asian women like will tell like each other to be like, hey, you should be more this or more that. Just and in the end, it's all to appeal to the white man. I don't know. It's just annoying because, and going back to the model minority myth, it's like they get to decide when we're Asian and when we're white, and when they want us and when they don't. So like pretty much
it just takes the power away.
Yeah. Pretty much our identity and like individuality is reduced down to how other white people perceive us. But take it away, Lena.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one thing that's really important to recognize also with stereotypes is they can also cause so much more like harm than people realize. Like when I complain about stereotypes in media, I feel like a lot of the time white people will be like, "Oh, it's just a joke or it's just some little silly little movie role." No, it's not. It can cause so much more shit because if you really think about it, the stereotype that Asian women are submissive or need to be colonized by a white man is linked to white supremacy. I read an article from the New York Times that shows that the alt-right has an obsession with Asian women. It's a fetish that they have with Asian women because they're portrayed as submissive or women who need to be dominated. And that's what we saw with the shooting in Atlanta, that this man was a white supremacist and he had fetishized Asian women, East Asian women specifically, and was like, "Oh, I need to dominate them." So that's what his actions were a direct result of his fetishization of these women. And I swear the only way that this man sees Asian women portrayed as submissive was through the media. And one example alongside that, I have the article pulled up that I was talking about, but I'll send it to you guys in case you want to link it anywhere, but it's called The Alt-Right's Asian Fetish. And it mentions this Filipino woman who's an influencer or like MTV personality. Her name is Tila Tequila, I believe. And she's literally, y'all know what I'm talking about. She's literally married to one of the biggest white supremacists ever. And one of the quotes actually from this article is that, let me read it out for y'all. Alt-right, so this was on an alt-right forum. It says, exclusively dating Asian women is practically a white nationalist rite of passage. So it's so ingrained in this culture and also in our society. So I want to like go out there and mention that these stereotypes in media are not just damaging in the short run. It's literally damaging in the long run as well, because it's linked to hate crimes, you guys. It's literally linked to hate crimes. So thought I would mention that. Yeah.
No, yeah, and like you said, like there's evidence to back this up. This isn't like we're just throwing this out there on our little pot. Like there's literally evidence that
like in
this.
the intro before this, the Diet Prada Instagram post that went viral that had a bunch of clips from movies, and I think the biggest one that I didn't even realize this was from this movie, but it's Full Metal Jacket, and the like when they have the prostitute come up to the two guys in the military, and she's just like prostituting, you know. And I didn't realize that that's where that, I don't even want to fucking say it. I don't even want to say it. I don't want to say it.
I've literally never heard of that movie.
If you just go to Diet_Prada and look at like the second little turnstile, Full Metal Jacket, listen to what she says. And I remember people saying these phrases, like it's sexualized phrases in broken English, basically. And yeah, it just makes me so uncomfortable. I don't even want to say it. And I remember people making jokes about that growing up, and I never realized that's what it's from. And it's really gross. It's
Is it the line where she says, "Oh, me so horny"?
Yeah, I didn't want to say it. It makes me so uncomfortable. It makes me want to gag. but I'm glad you have the strength to say it.
No, it's literally just because it was thrown around so much as a kid that I had no
I
idea where
heard
it
that
was
a lot.
from.
I didn't know where it was from either.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's the thing. I didn't even, for some reason, it didn't even click with me that it was an Asian woman, just because it was so cartoonish that I was like, oh, they're just being funny. And like that's the
Yeah.
thing, when like people are being racist like blatantly, like when you're just around it so often, that's why people are like, oh, that's so funny. It's like, it's not funny. It really like, but to what you were saying earlier about like the alt-right and like Asian women, I think that's, as like, especially during this time more than ever, dating during a pandemic is like you're literally just dating on Hinge or like Bumble or Tinder. No sponsorship, whatever, but just shamelessly plugging that in. But that's the thing, like it's so horrifying because you just never know what person you're going to match with on the site that actually fetishizes Asians. Like for example, my sophomore year of college, there was a guy that I was interested in that he went to I was gonna say her school name. He went to California Lutheran University, but he graduated before us, and so like I came across him on Tinder because that's when Tinder was still a little bit, a little bit more appropriate. But I matched with him on Tinder, and I remember like going to his house and just seeing like that he had like anime sweatshirts, like action figures.
I knew we were gonna full circle around this. I knew we were gonna get to this.
And like I remember like one night I like went over and he was like, oh, watch this show with me, and it happened to be an anime, and I had never seen an anime before. And like my thing is like I at that time was like, there's something off. Like his ex-girlfriend is Asian, she has balayaged blonde hair like me, and like I just was like, something just feels so wrong. And like I just I mean the fact that I was literally like 19 and still just had no idea that I was being fetishized by a white dude, and like it took me like so long to finally realize like what was going on, and it makes me just so angry. And like of course it's not fair to blame myself, but it's like you can't help it but like taking a step back and being like, wow, I genuinely liked this person and I was just like a trophy to them. And like I mean, it's just crazy now because like looking at like his track record too, I'm like, damn, you follow a lot of Asian girls on Instagram that look a lot like me. But it just makes
But they
me
don't
cringe.
see the wrong in that either. They don't even realize that they're fetishizing Asian women. They don't. They're just like, that's my type.
But it's
Yeah, or like, is that really the worst thing that could happen? Like, yeah. They're like, you should be so lucky. Like, shut the fuck up. No.
But like
literally.
that's the thing though. Like I mean I'm Filipino. I like get darker also in the summers. And so I mean, especially at our university, like people would always come up to me like after breaks. And I remember there was a night where I was super drunk and we were just all sitting in someone's garage, and then this white guy he's a very strong Trump supporter, by the way, may I add. He just looks at me and he goes, Serena, you're looking real dark. And I just sat there for a second and I was like, okay, yeah, it was summer. Like, cool. Like, yeah, thanks. I've been tanning. And then he goes, no, Serena, you're looking real dark. And then people started chiming in and going, yeah, you're looking real dark. And I was just like so confused because I was like, what the hell is going on? And then I just remember all at once, like I was just like, wait, what? And then the guy goes, no, Serena, don't worry, it looks real good. And then everyone else is just like nodding in agreement, and I was just sitting there and I was just like, fuck, like I've never felt so alone. Like the fact that people can smile at you and look at you and like think that they're complimenting you, but like they're just making you uncomfortable. And like the fact that it's like pointing out my skin color, like that just like pushes it to a limit that's like, okay, like I don't know what to do. I like don't know what to do.
Yeah, guys, let's normalize.
And that's on religious beliefs.
Yeah, let's normalize just like not commenting on people's bodies and the way they look.
Yeah.
Let's just stop doing that. Period. You just keep it to yourself. Just a passing thought, just don't, because it's harmful, like in any degree. Like if you're commenting on anything, you don't know how someone's gonna take it. You know what I mean? So it's just don't, and it creates this like insecurities. Like maybe that person never noticed that
you're
thing
pointing
about
out
them.
things. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, let's just keep it to ourselves.
Yeah.
I think
the way I've had multiple white men tell me that I have beautiful eyes. Like, I know that's something you say to people, but if you're white and I'm Asian and you say that to me, that's just kind of uncomfortable because, like, and it's not even your beautiful eye color. Like, I've had men tell me, like, wow, your eye shape is so unique. No, it's not. Shut the fuck up. What?
They call it exotic. They go, oh my god, your eye shape is so exotic.
No.
And then, but the thing is, when you're just like when you don't realize what it is, like sometimes you're like, who, me?
Oh, yeah.
You're like, oh, or like it's so funny that you said like your eyes are so beautiful, because sometimes when people say that, I'm like, but I'm like, they're brown. Like, I mean, I love my eyes.
That's what I
like,
say. I'm like, oh, they're
like,
brown though. Like, what's going on? I'm like, they're dark brown. You want to see?
Yeah, exactly.
It's so freaking funny. I'm like, ooh, Rick.
Or like, or the white people that are like, I'm gonna take a guess of like what kind of Asian you are based off your eye shape. Like, no, you're not.
No.
I hate that game. I've gotten so many different races. Like, it's really bad. Like, people have called me. I've gotten Indian before, which I get it, and Pakistani, similar, whatever. I've gotten Chinese before. I've gotten Native American before. I've gotten Hispanic. I've gotten everything. So to all the white people listening, let's not play that fucking game, okay? That's not a good game to play with people of color. So sorry, had to add that.
Yeah. I think that leads into like the question, like I had like has there been a time in a situation when someone said something offensive about that minimized Asian culture, and how did that make you feel, and like how did you handle it? I think maybe we could like touch upon like how it made us feel about like being Asian, because I feel like a lot of us have felt like we needed to like hide that part of ourselves, even though it's like that's just how we are.
That's
like
you.
That's literally how we exist. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I had an idea and then I don't remember right now.
Like an example?
Yeah.
Should we go in a circle?
I have a lot to say about this.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
If somebody else has something to say, they can go ahead. I think what's really angering for me is like the increase in trend of like spirituality, and how it's literally just Buddhism and Hinduism, but in a more comfortable way, I guess, because I grew up Buddhist in a predominantly Christian space, and a lot of people would always like freak out and be like, oh my gosh, what? You believe in multiple gods? And they'd like call Buddha fat and all these like disrespectful things, where like, and I just wouldn't tell people anymore. And I tried to just not be Buddhist anymore. And now all these like white girls are burning incense, and like they literally have like Buddha statues in their bathroom. And that just really annoys me. I don't know. Because it's like, how can you hate it, and then now when it's convenient for you, you love it. Same with like
decoration.
Food. Like they literally hated our food and now they love it. So I don't know.
Oh my God.
I'm sure everybody else has something to add, but
yeah, I think going off of that, like I think like Asian food is like now like the biggest trend, which is so weird. But like I remember like a lot of people would come with like Asian meals from home, and they would get made fun of because it smelled weird and it looked weird because it's not a fucking ham sandwich. Like I'm eating good over here, and you're eating a ham sandwich with mayonnaise.
Yeah, like have you ever heard of seasoning? I don't know. Maybe put some. I don't know.
It's like bologna sandwich with white bread.
What's that weird smell? Is that like paprika? That's spicy. Oh my God. The amount of white people that think paprika is spicy angers me. Sorry, go ahead, Alina.
No, I can't stop laughing at that fucking ham sandwich, literally. Yeah, for me, this is kind of in air quotes an unconventional sort of response to this question. But something that I've experienced as like someone who's South Asian is not even being considered Asian. So, for example, like I'm Pakistani, so people would either so the amount of times that I'd be like, oh, like making an Asian joke because I'm literally Asian, and someone would be like, well, you're not actually Asian though. And I'd be like, I would know if I'm Asian because I'm literally Asian. Like I've had multiple people like question my Asianness because I don't look Asian. And then that's a whole nother racist stereotype to get into. But for me, because since I'm Pakistani, I'm either considered Indian basically, or I'm basically considered not Asian. So it's like I'm never just my own race or ethnicity. I'm just never considered Asian, if that makes sense. And I think that's something that not a lot of people in the activism realm, you could say, recognize is that a lot of South Asians, and I obviously can't speak out of the Southeast Asian experience, but in terms of South Asian, are never considered Asian, period, like at all. So that's been my experience in regards to people questioning my Asianness. And that's something that I deal with on a daily basis, like having to explain geography to someone. Like, I am from Pakistan. Pakistan is here. This is in Asia, and that is South Asia. I am Asian. So it drives me insane because I'm never like considered part of the discussion when it comes to like Asianness or like Asian activism, whatever it may be. So that's something that I've dealt with countless times, and people just need to take a geography class, honestly, because I'm done teaching them geography. So yeah, that's my sort of
I never even noticed that I did that. Like, cause when people would assume my ethnicity or something, and then I would have to be like, oh no, I'm Asian, I'm Filipino, and I felt like I had to brace myself for like a mood change or something. Like, how weird is that you have to like be kind of, you're not like proud to say where you're from. And I feel like that is just really weird. And it's something I never noticed until literally right this second, that I would be like, yeah, I'm Filipino. Or
When
like, I
I
wouldn't like say with my whole chest, you know what I mean?
sorry, I just my mom and I, like when I was younger and we would walk down the street, we'd always get called, like people would just yell at us and be like, Chinese. They just yell that. Like, okay. First of all, we're not Chinese, but okay. And then like my mom, I don't know how she had the balls, but she'd be like, no, actually I'm from Taiwan, but good try. And I was like, but it was really funny. But also like when I was a kid, I got so uncomfortable because like, what am I supposed to do? And I think that was really cool of my mom to just like break that stereotype, because they expect you to just like cry and keep walking, or like you know, get uncomfortable and keep walking, which is acceptable. That's completely valid. And if that's what you do and that's how you cope, that's understandable. And like,
yeah, it's an awkward situation to be in.
Yeah, but like I think the fact that she like didn't give a fuck and was like, you know what, man, learn your geography, that was really cool. So I admire her for that. But like, I think it's also so angering how they just like, white people will do and say anything and then just expect people of color and like Asian people to just move on. Obviously I can only speak from the Asian perspective, but like people will like say the like most terrible things and then be like, oh well, you know, I didn't really mean it like that. Like, yes you did, you said it like that, so you meant it like that. I don't know if I like expressed that correctly, but
no, you did. Oh, something I was thinking about when you're talking about spirituality and like people whitewashing incense and literally Buddhist and Hindu religion. I think sometimes people just get caught up because it's so easily accessible now. And I get that you can get caught up in things and whatever, it's cool, it smells good, whatever you're trying to do. But I think at some point you realize that you realize the origins of it, and it's okay to learn about it later as long as you're taking the time to learn about whatever you're consuming is from, you know? Because I was so stupid, everything revolves around TikTok nowadays. But I remember seeing this girl a white woman talking about gua sha, which is a very popular Chinese tool now that helps give you a drawing. But it's an ancient practice, and it's not being taken like seriously. And this woman was saying how you need to support these small businesses that have originated it, and respecting the culture and understanding where it comes from. And that's the difference between culture appreciation and appropriation, which I don't think people get. And it's like all this stuff is so easily accessible to us, like especially everything now is on Instagram and cute little infographics. Like it's really not that hard to get the information, and Googling things and finding small businesses that are teaching the actual ancient practices of these things. You know what I mean? Like it's not that hard. I get it's like you get caught up in it, but you need to appreciate the culture rather than appropriate. And I feel like our consumer culture and how we consume media, it's just so too fast that we don't get to appreciate where things come from. And I think that's like the toxic part of this stuff, because it's great that people are like participating in it, but they're buying it from like mass produced, unethically produced places, which is not the move. It's not the vibe.
Alina and Zoe like both touched on this, but because of Kim, like you said, like how everything is just kind of readily available for us. Like for example, like going back to like people making fun of like Asian eyes, but now the fox eye trend is so big. And I think it's just one of those things where it's just so popular that people just kind of forget what it's rooted in. And I feel like sometimes people just need a reality check, but when they're given that reality check, they just get super offended by it.
Ooh, this is a good question that I just came up with right now. How do you feel about influencers that do these trends? They pose with their hands on their eyes. A lot of them do it. And a lot of them, like they'll have things that are, you know, I feel like UNIF or IMG or something, they have things that are inspired by Chinese culture in their fashion. And how does that make you like feel? Like, and especially influencers and companies, when things against the AAPI community happen and they're literally radio silent about it.
I don't know if I can answer this like directly, but I just wanted to like bring up like another instance of like cultural appropriation, because a couple of months ago I went to this like vintage thrift store that was owned by two white men. I think they were like friends or something, or in a relationship, I don't know, but they owned the store, and there was a lot of like 60s inspired American clothing, you know, like kind of Marilyn Monroe type of stuff, and like Jackie Kennedy type of fashion, which is really cool. And then I look over and I see this section, and it's like an Asian section, and it's just a whole rotating rack of qipao, and which is like the traditional Chinese garment that people wear, the one that has like the slit, you know. And it's often really sexualized amongst Western media, and it just made me really uncomfortable, because it was like this whole section of just like a bunch of different like, and I think some of it was even like Japanese, and some of it was Vietnamese, because I didn't recognize most of like the cuts. And I think it's just like, why do they group us together in this like monolith? And also, why are they selling that when it's literally not something that they know about? I don't know. That just, maybe I'm reaching, but that like was something that made me really uncomfortable. And I was there with my white friends, and I like almost started crying because they didn't see anything wrong with that, and I had to like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry.
I think it's weird when they do that, because they're not even understanding that there is cultural meaning behind it. And it's a difference, I feel like, when you have like a little like, I feel like they could have done something if they wanted to sell that. Because, you know, like I get like repurposing clothes, like I'm definitely all for that, but you're not even, and people are just buying it because they think it's cute, but you're not, you could easily have like a little infographic or like stand talking about the cultural significance and why people wear this and what for, but you're not even doing that. And I feel like that's such a simple thing to do if you were going to sell that. but I mean, like, I feel like you shouldn't because it has cultural meaning. But I think with the influencer things, I feel like I'm not going to call anybody out directly, but there has been quite a few of influencers and like YouTubers, especially, that I haven't followed recently because they have been radio silent on these issues. And especially, I don't know. And it's hard because I don't even know. Okay, go ahead, Serena. I was like getting irritated.
What I was going to say about influencers in general, I think it goes back to the fact that they kind of lack a sense of accountability, especially when they're called out on the fact that they have appropriated another culture, or that they have stolen from a small business that is owned by a BIPOC. The best example is someone that would probably sue us if we said her name in this podcast, because she is just that girly. She's basically just like this blonde, or not blonde, she's like this brunette girl that's from New York, very like affluent. She has like a bunch of followers on Instagram. She's like stolen from multiple BIPOC brands, and like literally like there is proof, there are receipts. She will contact the brands directly, her team will contact them, and then she'll take the items as her own, and she'll say, look at this really cute like gym short set that I created, or like totally like inspired by myself.
It makes me kind of sad because I really do like that white girl. I think her videos are so calming.
I always knew there was something off about
Yeah.
her.
I know.
Right.
I knew it in my bones, but you know, I just like her little.
You can never
quirkiness.
trust a white person. You can
Yeah.
never trust
It's always
a
good to
person.
hope that one of them will be different, but
Will they?
literally,
Prove us wrong. I'm gonna have this venting session about these white influencers.
But it's just so disappointing because like I understand that like sometimes not everyone has the right thing to say, but I feel like saying nothing, of course, is saying something in itself.
Yeah.
That shows that you're just comfortable in your whiteness. Everything is fine for you, so you're acting okay. Like there are so many people with this like recent tragedy that I feel like aren't saying anything, versus like unfortunately with like the Black Lives Matter movement over the summer, a lot of people were just doing the opposite and kind of doing performative activism in the sense where they were posting black squares, or they were saying things that just like were not, it was very just like white saviorism at that point. But now it's like they're not saying anything at all. And like I don't
let them highlight on their Instagram page, and then we're radio silent after June.
Yeah, and like I mean, I don't want to like of course like throw BLM into the mix at all, because that is just like a very, very important movement, and I feel like I don't want like the issue is like people feel like they can only focus on one thing, and they kind of are like speak up for the Asian community like you spoke up for like Black Lives Matter. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like that's just also pitting minorities against each other also, because it's like you can't don't capitalize on like another movement that is so important, so crucial, and there's so much work to be done, and then undermine it by saying, okay, like talk about us too, or like talk about them too. And the thing is, it's a lot of people that aren't even Asian that are also saying that. It just creates like just like this weird vibe of like, come on, like it's cool to care about everyone, but you don't have to throw other movements and other groups of people under the bus.
Exactly. It's not like you can have the brain capacity to focus on multiple social justices at a time.
I don't know why you're pitting everyone's
one issue at a time. Like that's not how it works. We gotta work together on everyone's issues, guys. Go ahead, Zoe.
I was just gonna say that the amount of people that I know in my life that were like posting like, you know, the Instagram infographics and like literal videos of people getting beaten up. First of all, I don't think that's effective at all. And like that just makes me sick to see like another Asian person getting violently targeted because of their race. And I think they like a lot of white activists did that too with Black Lives Matter, just posting people getting killed for no reason. So like I just personally have a really big problem with that. And obviously I'm not trying to speak on behalf of the whole BIPOC community, but also another thing is the white girls especially will post those infographics and then they won't actually care about real people and real individuals. Like, I had 0 white people reach out and ask me how I was doing. It was my Black friends, it was Alina, it was people who understood and people who actually went through that. And when I reached out to my white friends, I was like, do you guys not care? Like, do you not know that this like is taking a personal toll on people right now? They were like, well, we just don't want to say anything racist. Okay, if you don't want to say anything racist, just don't say anything racist. I don't know why it's that hard for you. Like, I think something so important is, for me personally, I would rather you say something wrong than say nothing at all. Because
you're having that dialogue.
Yeah,
you're
if
opening
you're gonna,
yourself up to that.
Yeah, and then you're open, and don't get defensive when people correct you. Because first of all, it's not my job to correct you, and if I am, you should take that very seriously. And like, if you're gonna post infographics and you're gonna be an activist, you need to actually care about real people, and not just like put up, you know, your social, like, mask to make people know that you're woke. You have to actually care. And like, to some extent, I prefer when like white women are silent and don't say anything and don't talk to me, because I would rather you like do that than like act unracist in front of your white friends and then just literally not care about me. I don't know. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Alina.
So, oh my gosh, in terms of like the influencer thing, and then I'll jump back to the anti-Asian hate movement too, because I have something to add to that. But for the influencer thing, there's a bunch of like examples that I can just list off. But one, and I just thought of one right now, but it was obviously big Cheetah Girls fan, whatever. But there was one movie, I think in the Cheetah Girls series, where they went to Bollywood or whatever. And I thought that's like one example of this, because at first I felt so represented. I was like, oh my God, Cheetah Girls doing a Bollywood like movie, whatever. But then I kind of like rewatched some of those scenes and I was like, okay, this is a little bit concerning. We need to address this. And but that was just like one example. But another one that I know is going to become a trend soon that is in my culture is henna tattoos. And it's actually, Zoe knows, she's heard my rant about this, but it's actually called mehndi in Urdu and also Hindi. And it's basically like this design that you get on your hand. It's like henna, obviously it's temporary. And I've been seeing so many people on TikTok and social media getting these designs, being like, oh my gosh, guys, look at my henna tattoo, whatever. And then they're completely silent about any issues that affect Asian people. And so that I know is going to become a trend very soon. I will say it right now. It's going to become a trend for white people to profit off of. And what makes me mad about these trends that influencers do is like, I was made fun of for having like mehndi on my hand. I literally was told to go wash it off when I was in elementary school by some white ass teacher because it was distracting. I was told to put a glove on, whatever, right? And now I see it's really bad. And now I see white people doing it for fun, being like, oh, look, I'm so exotic. I have a henna tattoo. So there's just a lot of examples in terms of the influencer stuff. And what makes me mad about that is that they will easily pick and choose from BIPOC culture what they think is cool and exotic. And then they'll ignore the issues that they face and not use their white privilege or become a better ally in order to better and like kind of give a platform for these BIPOC people to speak about these issues that they face. So that kind of bugs me about the whole like social media stuff and performative activism as a whole. But as for the anti-Asian hate sentiment movement, I think what Serena said about like how it's being compared to Black Lives Matter is a really good point, because these are two like completely separate issues. Obviously, the overlap of white supremacy and internalized racism in our system is an overlap in the two, but the rest of it is completely separate. Like, you need to address these issues without comparing them. And the one commonality that I've noticed when people are trying to be activists, in air quotes, about Black Lives Matter and the anti-Asian hate sentiment movement is and this drives me insane, but they don't recognize that it's further than just like this year. Like, anti-Asian hate sentiment has been in our history for years. If you look at like in the UK, the anti-South Asian hate sentiment, the hate crimes going on against the Pakistani people, the Sikh people, that's a big issue. No one talks about that. also the Japanese internment camps after Pearl Harbor, that's an issue. No one talks about that. So it just makes me mad that they're only now recognizing this because it's like, oh, I spoke about Black Lives Matter. That's also been an issue for years. Police brutality has been an issue for years. Like, listen to any sort of rap album. Ice Cube has like so many lyrics where he talks about police brutality being an issue, and that music came from the 90s. And obviously police brutality goes past the 90s, but it's just white people like to think that it's just now an issue and that they need to now talk about it, but it's been in our history for like years on end. So
the people that are affected by it don't, but the people that are affected about it don't forget it. They don't get to pick and choose when they forget about their own trauma. Like,
exactly.
Have empathy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, period. Like, people need to learn that skill. And I feel like, especially on the social media aspect, because we're literally overstimulated with like information every single day, like endless scrolling on things, like you feel desensitized to the actual issues, which is like really weird because it's literally affecting real life people and real life groups of people. Go ahead, Serena.
What I was going to say is I feel like, well, of course, social media is a big part of how people are just kind of desensitized to racism nowadays. And I like, back to what like Zoe was saying earlier, trauma porn is such a big thing. Like, a lot of people have been sharing specifically the image of the Chinese woman in San Francisco that was bloodied and beaten by that white man that she ended up beating up herself, which I'm like, yes, mama. But what I will say is I feel like the most toxic thing about infographic Instagram culture is the fact that whenever a tragedy does happen, all, like, for example, like in particular with like the anti-Asian, or I'm messing up my words, but basically with infographic culture, people are kind of just reducing minorities and their pains and what they go through to just what they can provide for everyone. Like, so for example, I've been seeing a lot of the infographic, like you take a picture drinking a matcha green tea latte and you wing your eyeliner and you do X, Y, and Z, but you're not speaking up against Asian hate. And I'm like, okay, but like, you're also just focusing on, in general, on what we provide and what we bring to the table rather than who we are as people. Like, people are dying, people are getting shot, people are being fetishized, and like, you are literally bringing up matcha green tea lattes. And like, I think it was crazy with like the Black Lives Matter movement. People would be like, but you listen to rap music, why are you quiet? And I'm like, okay, yes, but also what?
It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
Like, like you had like the right sentiment, but I don't
You're
know.
not on the right track.
Yeah.
It
like,
just
you're
like
very
focus on what we provide rather than
you're
like
boiling it down to it's
It's the same thing as like when people are like, oh, but that's somebody's sister, that's somebody's mother. I'm like, oh, what? That's such a weird thing to say. It's like, they're still, why are you reducing someone to what they can provide?
Yeah, like, that's a
that they're
person.
people?
You know what I mean? That's a person. And I think, sorry, I know you wanted to speak, Alina, but I'm just really quickly going to say that I think it's always like, you have to relate and prove that oppressed communities are valuable to the community that is currently in power. So like when people say like, if you watch anime, if you eat kimchi, if you drink boba, support Asian lives, it's like, okay, so basically if white people are entertained by us, they should support us. Or like, oh, if men find women attractive, or if men like have women in their lives, they should support like the movement against sexual harassment and sexual assault. Like, no, how about we just think of people as individuals and not how they'll benefit you personally.
Yeah,
I was gonna say something similar to what Zoe was saying, but it's similar to how in like the sexual assault awareness like movement as a whole, people are like, oh, imagine it was your sister, imagine it was your mother. Like, you don't need to imagine this sort of fucked up incident to think that this is a bad situation that's going on, that this needs to be stopped as a whole. And that's similar to the anti-Asian hate sentiment that's going on right now, about how it's like, oh, if you drink boba, or if you watch anime, or if you like K-pop, you need to care. It's like, you need to care, period. Like, you don't need to care whether you're being entertained by BIPOC people or not. You need to care because they're people. Like, I don't know why you have to get something in return from minority communities in order to care about them literally being hate crimed in the street. You should just care because they're being hate crimed in the street. Like, you don't need to be like,
Yeah.
oh, but boba, like, who cares? Like, that's like, you
Yeah.
should just care in general. So
You should care
I don't
for
know.
all humans.
Yeah, like, why do you care about like boba and K-pop? Like, you should just care
Mhm.
about them, like this community as a whole that's literally just being oppressed in front of your eyes. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
completely agree on that.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next question. I didn't know how to segue.
An hour in?
No, I literally was like, how am I gonna? And I was like, no, it's not gonna work.
It's okay.
No,
No,
so,
it's 'cause
yeah, I get that. It's like
we've
just go
covered-
on to like a whole rant. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, next
No,
question.
I was
Like,
literally looking through all the questions, and I was like,
We've answered like half.
we've answered most of them.
Yeah, you guys have answered most of the questions already, like
Yeah.
inadvertently.
Yeah, so I'm like trying to take them off. I think this one's a good one. How does this affect comfortability in workplaces, and how much protection does BOPC actually have? I think I thought about this in the terms of like film and television, and that especially in whitewashing Asian characters, like the amount of fucking white people that have been casted as Miss Scarlett Johansson. I'm looking at you. Miss Scarlett Johansson, I'm looking at you. Like that Dragon Ball Z movie that came out in the early 2000s. Good fucking lord. There was literally like a Matt Damon movie that came out a few years ago about the Great Wall of China.
Yeah.
And he was like literally a warrior for the Chinese army, I guess.
The
and
first
I was
Avatar, the last Airbender one where they were all white. I was like, huh?
No,
What?
exactly. And I'm just so confused. Imagine, and I highly doubt they had any Asian people working, like if not like barely any Asian people. And if not, I feel like a lot of times when you're the one Asian person in the room of all white people, who the hell is going to listen to your opinion? And I feel like I've definitely dealt with this on like a smaller level out, like just in college. Like I would sometimes be in like student government and we'd be talking about issues and they were like, well, why are we just targeting that one group? Like, why wouldn't we include everybody? I'm like, because it has nothing to do with the other groups of people. Like, these people are being targeted. We need to talk about them and talk through their issues and hear them out. Like, what is going on? But I also, I forget what I was talking about. I'm in regard to film. I had such a good fucking note for this too.
Well, when you think of it, but it not just in also workplaces, like also like learning environments. I think just any place where you might be, you know, maybe the only Asian person in the room and no one else is like, you know, if anybody wants to go ahead and answer that one.
I think it's interesting because my sister works for a big corporation within the entertainment industry, and I was listening in. They actually had like a Zoom meeting to talk about the recent events in Atlanta, and it became a forum for of course, like all of her Asian coworkers to speak on their sentiments about what happened. But there was in particular one white man that, like, of course, like came forward to share his sentiments, and his were essentially like, you know, I used to make homophobic remarks and racist remarks, and it wasn't until someone said, hey, that's not okay, that I realized that, hey, it is not okay. And it was just like kind of flooring to hear someone come forward and like openly just come to a forum where people are meant to be speaking about how they're feeling about a recent tragedy of people of the same race that they identify with or that they are, and just kind of put out their own white guilt so that they could feel better about themselves. And it's almost like he was kind of coming forward for, like, this is the thing, a lot of white people will go to people of color and essentially just like come to them to absolve their white guilt, and it's like, that's not our job and that's not our place, and it's up to you to do that work. But it's crazy because in that forum also, like, there was another POC that came forward and was like, what can I do as a POC to be a better ally, and like what can I do? Like just what can I do in general, which is such a fair and beautiful question. But it comes down to the fact that this might be a hot take, but this is like white people's job. Like to disband
I don't think that's a hot take. I agree.
yeah, to like to disband white supremacy, why are we making the people that are being oppressed be the ones fight so hard for what they truly deserve? And I feel like
you invented it, untangle it. Why is it my job? I don't know.
I love you. I love you both. I love you. Just I like every time you guys both talk, I'm just like keep going, keep going.
No,
Okay,
literally.
anyway, someone else take it
You're
away.
like, I don't know if I'm making sense.
And
I'm like, no, you make perfect sense. You're so smart.
there quick interjection. There was a tweet once that was like, in quotes, it was like, I don't know if I'm making sense. And then it was like the line, like the dash, and it was like said by a beautiful hot girl that's making perfect absolute sense. And I was like, yes. So every time all of us, we say, okay, I'm calling myself out here too, but like each of us, we're all saying something that makes perfect eloquent sense.
Yeah.
And like, given the fact that we're talking about a really heavy topic that just makes us flustered in general, and we're trying our best, we're all making perfect sense. And we keep going, I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh
it's
my
like,
gosh.
I'm like, shout it.
Do you guys ever, I used to do this a lot, but do you guys ever, and I do it sometimes still, but do you, like when you're talking to white people, especially like the white liberals that are like, how can I be a better ally? And you actually tell them, and then you're like, well, I felt like this time you were being a little racially insensitive or like ignorant, whereas literally they were just being racist, but you have to like infantilize them and dumb it down so they don't get offended and run away and just not talk to you. It's so exhausting to just have to like constantly censor yourself. I don't know. I guess it's another way of like just internalized white supremacy and how like even when you're trying to dismantle it, you still have to like be it, if that makes sense.
Girl, you just said it, and
it does make sense.
It makes sense. But like that's the thing, we do coddle white people. We coddle white people so that they can understand our pain, but they'll never. I'm sorry.
And then they freak out because they're like, "Oh, I'm trying so hard here." Like, bitch, I don't care how hard you're trying. I've been trying my whole life to be you. That doesn't work. So just stay in your place. Like, I don't know why they do that thing as like you were talking about with your sister's company where they're like, as a white person, I'm so saddened by this. Like, okay, it's not about you. You can be saddened about this somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's like a press release.
Not to be harsh.
It's literally a press release.
No, it's true. It's true.
Anyway, we know so many people like that. Yeah. There are so many people I'm like thinking about, and I'm like, with peace and love, yes.
The profile's going through your head right now.
It's like what you were saying, my AirPod's gonna die, but whatever. Like one thing that I hate about white liberals, and it's that they're like trying to apologize for being white. Like they're like, I'm so sorry I was white. I wish I could help somehow. Like, bitch, like you're a colonizer, accept it, just figure out how to be a better ally. Like that's my thing. Like, so it makes me mad. And I think one thing in terms of like the question that you asked, Kim, was obviously I don't have a job, so in the school environment, one thing that I've noticed is with like my brother's school and my school, after like things like the Atlanta shooting, Black Lives Matter movement, all of that stuff that's going on, our like administration would email all of the students to be like, we recognize this is a tough time, especially for our minority students. Let us know if you need anything, which is obviously bare minimum. The bar is very low, but I do think that that's an acceptable like step in the right direction, because you're recognizing that this is a fucked up issue and that it needs to be addressed. And if it's hard on people, it's hard on people, and you need to give them space to process that, because you will never understand what it's like to be in that position. Because for me, I'm South Asian, and the hate crime that happened in Atlanta was East Asian based hate, and it came from a place of East Asian people being targeted because of COVID-19. So since I'm South Asian, I can't directly relate to that, because although we're like both Asian in terms of like community wise, I won't understand what it's like to be East Asian. So I need to be a better ally, or a better Asian ally, by understanding that I don't know what that's like. So I think that's also important to address in terms of like the entire Asian community, is you also need to recognize when you need to be a better ally yourself. So Yeah, at least that's what I've noticed. I think there needs to be a lot more being done in the workplace and also in schools and school systems to be better allies for BIPOC people. But it does start by recognizing that this is an issue in our society that we need to address, like, as a whole.
In terms of workplace, I feel like, okay, like for example, like what you were saying earlier, Lena, like the best way to put it is like white sectional feminism also is just like such a prevailing thing, like girl boss culture and whatever. But it's like when people say shit like, oh, girl boss, it's like just a bunch of white girls referring to themselves being elevated into positions of power, and they're kind of forgetting everyone else at the bottom. And I feel like that's like the number one thing that I've realized, like especially working, interning, and like now I have my first like big girl job, is like we always are like, yes, women in the workplace, but they're always just talking about white girls. Sorry, but like I don't
No, it's true.
No,
It's
no,
true.
sorry. I agree.
All of us
Sorry.
unmuting. All
Everyone.
like, no, you're
Yeah,
right. You're
and,
right.
like that, it kind of does, like, I mean, this kind of course, just like goes back to like the sexualization of Asians as well. Is like, I mean, it's so white feminism is so cultural, or is so not cultural. Whoa, is so just like toxic in the sense that they just kind of forget other groups of people. So there's like pussy power, but it's also like, okay, like what about the femicide in other countries that are happening?
Yeah.
Like you don't say shit. Like it's just like a very self-serving thing rather than focusing on people of color that are women that are being severely oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree. Like, oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I was gonna say, and that's my TED talk. So it was
TED Talk,
and that was
yeah.
it wasn't that important to say. It was just being theatric. But go ahead, girl. I love it.
I was just gonna say, I think a lot of those like movements, let's be honest, they don't do anything. Like, okay, Bethany, you don't have to shave your legs, you don't have to wear a bra. At the end of the day, like, you're not the one getting killed and you're not the one being sold on the dark net. Like, this is real shit. Like, little girls who aren't white are more likely to be taken because like they're in vulnerable positions, whatever. It's like, that's all great, freedom the nipple for sure, do whatever you want with your nipples, but at the end of the day, like, do you understand that you're still white? Do you? Because if I were to free my nipple, I would like probably receive hate from my own community and other people. So it's like, I think all of these like white feminist movements, like, it's a good start, but it's not enough. Like, oftentimes where these issues are coming from is because white women don't have to deal with race, so they find other things to focus on, which is like, obviously all women are like over sexualized, but like you need to understand how race comes into that,
I think what I was thinking about when I wrote this question was kind of like, I was thinking about there are literally, maybe I could count on one hand, Asian female directors. And that's being so generous. And I think, especially when I think about like getting movies made and everything, I think about all the steps you have to go towards, especially when it comes to funding. And the people that have the funding are old white men. And how is an old white man going to identify with a Asian woman's experience when it's not having to do with satisfying a old white man? You know what I mean? Because that's all they know, because that's all they've seen. And I think it can be kind of discouraging when you want to see like more diverse stories in regards to like film and television. I definitely think we're on the right track.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the recent year we've had The Farewell and Crazy Rich Asians have been like the biggest ones that like every kind of like quote unquote everyone knows. And it's like, how many fucking white people films have we had in the past years that people can name?
Yeah. The way that what's his name? The guy from The Walking Dead, he's the first Asian American. Yeah, he's the first Asian American. Yeah. Yes, he's the first Asian American man to be nominated for an Oscar.
Ever. It is 2021, y'all. What is going on? And even like him, like he is a desirable Asian man, quote unquote, because he's like fit and lean and he has a jawline. Like Asian men and how they're treated in society is a whole different topic, and I would love to have a group of Asian men come and talk about that, because I can only imagine how they feel, and especially with the construct of masculinity on top of that. Girl, if you're listening to this and you're an Asian man and you want to talk about it, please.
Oh my God, I would love Steven is listening to this.
Oh, yeah.
Steven! Hi!
I would love that. Hey, Steven. I'm just Go ahead, Alina.
Yeah, so I think one thing that I was going to mention when you were talking about like film and media is, I always talk about this, but like representation behind the camera is also important, because obviously seeing yourself on screen is very important, but also having someone behind the camera who actually understands what it's like to be a person of color and a minority is also just as important. So that's why I think like uplifting like people of color in the film industry, not only actors, like obviously that's important, is also very like very significant as well. And also one thing that I've noticed is like for me as a South Asian person, there's like probably 5 South Asian people in the entire media industry, and that's like upsetting to me, because like half of them are trying to like get the white man's approval. And I'm talking about fucking Priyanka Chopra and Mindy Kaling. I will say it. Priyanka Chopra is not my fucking representation, all right? So it just makes me upset, because it's like and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Priyanka Chopra actually was a Bollywood actress first and then moved to Hollywood. And in the middle, she had a song with Pitbull, so she was all over the place, basically. And it makes me upset, because she was trying so badly to be accepted by the white majority, like the white audience, that she had to dilute herself and who she was and like her roots, to the point of where she started talking like with like a white person accent, and I hope you all know what I'm saying. So that makes me mad. And also how when you're talking about Asian men as well, that's a whole another thing, and that goes into the topic of like the approachable white man, how white men who are like not conventionally attractive, basically like Adam Driver. Obviously I'm in love with Adam Driver, but he's one example, how he gets more roles compared to like an approachable looking man of color. Like the men of color that we see on screen, like Riz Ahmed, like Henry Golding, like Idris Elba, like they're all very conventionally attractive looking. There's never roles that are being given to unconventionally attractive looking men of color. And so it's upsetting to me to see that, because it's like an approachable white man who's just like barely decent looking gets all the hype, but then men of color have to go to very extreme lengths to be like attractive looking to even get considered to get a role like that. So that would also be a very interesting topic to talk about. So I hope y'all do that in the future, because I would love to listen to that.
I would love to talk about it. And like I think also like this also kind of ties into the last question. I think BIPOC in general, like why does everything have to be about our trauma, or our plot lines in film and media and TV have to be related to our Asianness or your Blackness or whatever it is? Like, why can't we just exist also? Like, why can't we just have like a silly, crazy, stupid love movie that literally is just no thoughts, like, just
a TV show will have like the white characters and their storyline will be like, oh, their boss at work is mean to them. And then there's like a black character and it's like this super intense storyline. And we're like,
and it's a sideline. So you don't even really get the whole story. Like, I just don't understand why it's so hard just to have people be people and not defined by their trauma or their race, because people are way more than that, you know? Like, it's definitely a part of their identity, and it definitely affects their decision-making progress, but it's not every fucking this moment of their life is like based upon that. Like they can have a love interest and it be simply about love. And you know what I mean? Like, why can't we have that? So I want to end on a high note, because I feel like sometimes on our podcast we do a really bad job. Most of the time on our podcast we do a really bad job of like ending on a bad note. So I made sure to have a good question.
It's like we'll be like in a good mood the whole episode, and then the last point will be like the most depressing point of the whole episode. And we're like, and that's all for today, guys.
But I think this is a good one. What is the first memory you had of a positive representation of an Asian woman? Or if you can't remember that, like your favorite.
Good.
So I have, okay, well, the shows that I'm going to mention, like, I'm sure they have their faults or whatever, but two of them, so one was The Good Place and then the other was New Girl. And the reason why I chose this was because both of them have brown women as like the attractive girl, and that's something that I've never ever in my entire life seen on screen. And those are the two examples of when I saw, I was like, wow, oh my gosh, a girl that looks like me. And she's considered the hot girl in the show. She's considered the love interest. So that was for me one example. And I think it's so hard to find examples like that. And like to the point of where I've literally had to go like rely on like Bollywood movies to even get my representation. I had to go to like an industry that's like common in my like home country or whatever in order to see someone who looks like me on screen. So I thought I'd mention that because that is so messed up that I had to go to the extent of that I'm not even seeing it just in Hollywood as a whole. But yeah, New Girl in The Good Place, although I didn't finish The Good Place, but I did like seeing someone to look like me as like the love interest because that's very rare.
Mm. And I think like it was interesting that you said like I don't know if these characters have problems, and it's like I think that's a good thing about film and television is like I think not all characters have good moments, like all people don't have good moments. Like everybody in their life has had moments where they have not been a good human, and that's just a part of it. And it also like helps like humanize them and realize like you can overcome the shitty things that you've done.
Yeah.
You know, does anyone else want to go?
I was gonna say, I think that like, okay, I know Mulan is problematic, but like,
I was gonna say that as well.
I know it's problematic, but I feel like that was such like a fundamental movie to me. Like growing up, especially seeing like a badass Asian woman, saving the day, and like it just kind of it's empowering. Like even when you're little and seeing like I mean, we watch so much princess movies about just like a man saving the day that it's like finally just like a woman saving the day that it's just refreshing. And I think that was just like the first impactful movie. But like Kim, to your point earlier, like a movie that like to all the boys I loved before is a big one where it's like it's finally just a movie about like a young Asian girl that just happens to fall in love with a boy that she wrote letters to and stuff. So I think that's fun. But at the same time, like, of course, Netflix has its own problems in terms of casting, and especially because Atlanta Condor's siblings are not the same type of Asian as her. And I believe one of the sisters is like mixed, but we're not going to get into that. Yeah. But it's just one of those things where it's just like,
I do think it's interesting that you bring up To All the Boys I Loved Before because I read the books. The books are immaculate. Please, if you do anything, read the books. It's so easy to read, and they're so much better than the movies. The movies did it so dirty. It makes me so mad. It's something I literally keeps me up at night. But I did like you said, like she fell in love with this boy, but they also introduce her culture in it as well, and they celebrate the new year, and they talk about like why what they wear is important and like what they do during this holiday to celebrate. And it's such a subtle thing because that's just her everyday life. That's just what's normal to her. And I think that's like, it seems so like mundane and like something like, but it means a lot to somebody that experiences that.
Yeah.
You want to go, Zoe?
Yeah, I was also going to say Mulan. And I think what's really refreshing about that is finally like, it was an Asian woman that wasn't expected to be with like a white man. So I think that's really cool. And then a movie that I actually just watched like pretty recently, it's called The Feels. And it's like a comedy, I think. And I'm pretty sure it was produced in like 2016, but it's about this lesbian couple, and Constance Wu plays the lead like woman. I don't know if she's like co-lead or whatever, because it's about like her and her white girlfriend. But like I really like that movie because it's like the first time I've ever seen lesbian Asian representation, and also the last time I've ever seen lesbian Asian representation. And I'm sure like there is some like 90s movie, but that just seemed like really odd and like fetish. Like I think there's like a couple that are like, I don't know what they're called because I didn't watch them, but they just seem like they'd be really weird and like fetish-y. I don't know. So that was really cool to see like representation of like my like being Asian and like also lesbian. So I kind of did have a problem that like with the fact that she was dating a white woman, but like, you know, progress is a steady hill to climb. And also Constance Wu is very cool, but like she's like one of like 8 Asian actors that I can think of that are like actually in movies. So
yeah. I think for me, my ones that I think of when I think about this question is London Tipton and Gabriella.
Yes.
From High School Musical. Because London Tipton, I was obsessed with Sweet Life on Zack and Cody because again, it kind of broke the stereotype. Like she was loud and she was quote unquote obnoxious, but she was fucking funny and she loved luxury, and
she was also like stupid, and I loved that.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. I was like, oh my god, yes, queen of not being smart sometimes. Like
queen of not knowing.
No, queen of not knowing, queen of literally living in a daydream. Like I love her. And I thought that was really interesting to see, and I thought it was really cool to see as a young kid. Like I was like, oh my god, one nugget. We get one nugget of like cool Asian representation. And then when I found out that Vanessa Hudgens was half Filipino, I damn near lost my mind. I literally was like, this is absolutely everything. And the fact that she was the lead, like, yeah, she still had like the smart girl trope, but you know, I think we can again take what we can get. But the
literally,
fact that
oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, like, all of the movies and films we mentioned have like things that are wrong with them, and that just sucks. And we need to not do that anymore. But like, they still are cool. So sorry, go ahead, keep going.
Okay, I think it's just like some people will have that to like identify with. You know, someone's a Gabriella out there.
Oh.
Aw.
Oh, so we're like, oh.
Yeah.
Sorry to go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say like real fast, like the farewell. Like I feel like seeing like an Asian grandmother, I just like it really pulled at my heartstrings because it made me think of my Lola, and I just like all the feels. But like I think that was also another refreshing one, and it's crazy because that was so recent. Like this
a lot of our examples are recent. Yeah, which is, you know, it is what it is.
I think that says a lot about our society.
100%. And I think, again, like I'm looking forward to like seeing more Asian representation in media and stuff as more Asian women producers, directors, everybody, actresses, actors are getting the recognition that they deserve. Period. And and on a high note, thank you guys for talking and being vulnerable and having a safe space, especially because like it's been like weird times, and especially in quarantine, we haven't been able to like kind of actually talk it out. So this was nice.
Yeah. If you guys want to go ahead and plug where people can find you, we can go to Circle again.
Yeah, so you can find me on, oh my gosh, I hate that I started it like that. You can find me on my podcast, which Zoe is also on, Colonize This. We did an episode with Our Hollywood. They were actually our first guests ever, and it was very fun. So you should listen to that. And also my other podcast, Dear Asian Girl, and then my Instagram is just my name with another M at the end because apparently that handle was taken.
Oh my god, I hate plugging my ads. So sorry. I'm like, hey guys, you can find me at Serena Baines on Instagram and on TikTok. I'm not really funny or entertaining, but I dress cute and I am cute. Okay. Sending it to Zoe.
So really funny story. I actually don't know how to spell my Instagram username.
That's okay. We'll follow you.
Yeah.
Follow
You
all
can
of
add-
our guests.
You can add my Snap though. It's
If Steven is listening, Steven, if you're listening,
Steven, add my Snap. It's ROTO Snap 11. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all this information will also be on our Instagram, so it's more accessible and easier to find.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for having me. This was
Thank
really
you.
cool, and I love
Thank
the
you.
format of our discussion.
Yeah, it was so fun.
I love this.
It was so fun.
It was so fun.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, we're not gonna be able to like. I don't know what I thought this was gonna be. I just always assume chaos is the default.
Okay, he literally always assumed chaos was gonna happen, and I'm like,
Listen,
I thought that went great, and he's like, I thought that was gonna go so bad, and I'm like,
if you are always prepared for chaos, then you're ready when it does happen.
Is that like a Britney Spears?
What?
Just kidding. I don't know.
What?
Maybe.
No. I was just gonna say this felt so like. Have y'all seen the one? I don't know if it was Vanity Fair that did it, but they did the circle with like Adam Sandler, Adam Driver. Fuck, I'm forgetting the rest, but it felt like that. I felt like Adam Driver. I was like, oh, my turn. Let me add. Like,
that's
was like-
that's literally what I was like watching in preparation. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, this is the mindset we're in.
They're like around a table.
amazing. Oh, I loved it. It was very fun.
Yay! I feel so happy about it.
Cutie. I literally the whole time I'm just like looking. I'm like, I love her. I love her. I love her. I love him. I'm just like so like I can't stop. I'm like everyone's just so smart. It's so cute. It's so
Oh my
it
god.
makes me so happy. It really does. Like I just love people like this. And like, wait, are you guys in high school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The youth. We love the youth. So fucking
The children are our future.
You guys are the it's literally like a 3-year age gap, and I'm like, yes.
A
It's so
child.
funny.
No, I'm like I'm obsessed. Like when I say it, I mean it. I mean it.
Thank you. I really
Yeah,
I
making
like your
connections. We love it here.
shirt. I like your shirt, Kim. I think that's a very cool shirt.
Thank you.
What is
What's
it?
on
An
it?
R?
It's NYC Ballet.
Oh,
It's
period.
Acme Studios. I got it secondhand.
Ooh.
Oh, she
Classically trained.
She's classy. She loves the arts. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Okay, okay, we got it.
Yeah, we're
gotta go.
just complimenting each other.
Okay.
Thank you guys all for being here.
Yeah.
And join us next week. I don't even know what we're doing.
Oh, did you stop the recording?
No.
Oh no, there's a sign off still.
Oh.
The way he almost ended the meeting.
Yeah. It's like, bye guys, and I hang up
Yeah.
completely.
Okay.
Goodbye. Thank you.